Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Kate Hodges, and I am the Deputy Town Manager, and this is the second of the White Pond Public Forums. And we have quite a bit of information to impart upon you tonight. I don't think anything super surprising, but for those who are at the first meeting, we've taken a lot of that feedback, a lot of the questions, a lot of the concerns and suggestions, and we have some changes that we've implemented that we hope answer some of those questions, and we've taken the time over the past several weeks to find some answers to some of the questions that we didn't know at the time. So I would ask that you allow us to at least give you a basic overview of what we've done over the last month or so before you ask any questions, and then once we open it up, there'll be plenty of time. I would also ask that if you're going to ask a question, that you come up to the microphone and state your name and address, please. I also want to say that this is being recorded on Minuteman Media Network. And so there is audio recording in here as well, which is why it's so important that we speak into the microphone. We had a slideshow that was more just to get people excited about sort of the pictures, and I'm sure everybody is quite familiar with the area, but we wanted to sort of share that. But we seem to be having some technical difficulties, so in lieu of that, when we have the recording up for folks to watch on Minuteman Network, we can also attach this to the meeting notice if we can't get it together this evening. So again, we're just going to take a little time at the beginning here to kind of go over things that we have done. So again, I am Kate Hodges, the Deputy Town Manager, and the White Pond Association has graciously gifted their properties to the town of Concord. At the last time we met, we were still in the negotiation phase for the donation agreement and an access agreement. And I'm happy to say that we are 95% of the way there. The town manager, before his last week, signed the donation agreement with the select board's approval at their meeting 2 Mondays ago. And that is off to White Pond Associates attorney. That was the exact draft that they sent. We didn't have any more corrections, so I have no reason to believe that they won't be signing it and sending an original here. We also have a fully executed license agreement, which provides the town and the recreation department and the facilities department the ability to go onto the property to either do capital improvements, to do cleanup, and then to ultimately operate the beach. So depending on when the actual donation agreement goes through and the corporation is dissolved by the Attorney General's office, we still have the right to go on the property and to conduct business. That was not the case the last time we met, and we were still waiting for that. So what is happening right now is sort of a rush to get things ready for everybody. Ryan Kane, our recreation director, is sitting right here in the blue shirt. Ryan Orr is our facilities director. He's here in the black. And Delia Kay is the natural resources director, and she's joined us as well. So all I wanted to say, at least initially here, is that the town has taken the time to talk to several consulting firms that really specialize in aquatic parkland and aquatic infrastructure, including access and parking and sort of flow. And we have partnered and hired Weston and Sampson. Weston and Sampson is a very large group, but they have a very large and very capable aquatics division. And so they have several folks that have been out to the property. There was a survey that was conducted by the White Pond Associates in 1999, and then there was an update to that in 2006. A full, complete survey of the property hasn't been conducted since 2006, but a lot of what's already existing is still relevant. And so Weston and Sampson's first order of business was to contact the survey company who had completed that back in 2006, and then to update it to 2019, because things can change, as you know, over more than a decade. If we could just hold questions till the end. So those that will be our first step is the mapping, and then we're going to be moving on to a preliminary master plan, which is going to address access and circulation, parking improvements near the front of the property by the Plainfield Road, stairs and a switchback walkway from the parking area to the beach, ADA and accessible parking upgrades, the removal and recycling of the existing bath houses, and either replacing with what we talked about at the last meeting, which is a restroom trailer, which we were referring to internally as the Taj Mahal of potties, or something else in its stead, boat launch improvements, and then our main focus for this is going to be stormwater management. We want to make sure that we are collecting water as best we can as it comes down before it's entering into the pond, that we're using sustainable plantings, sustainable gardens, and infrastructure in the hopes that what we're doing is really going to improve the overall health and viability of the pond. So during this whole public phase, and this will likely get off about as the time that the beach swimming season is ending, there'll be several more public hearings where they'll be called. We'll be, wanting to hear from the community about what the concerns are for the property, what kind of access we need. The last meeting that we had, we heard a lot from people who had been either members there or visitors or neighbors for a number of years. It seems like it's a widely used parcel at all, stages of the year. And so we want to make sure that we're giving, amenities and things that people can use so that we reduce, any type of misuse of the property or any contaminants or anything of that nature. So we'll be doing the public engagement, and then finally, we are going to have a strategic master plan, which is pretty typical for parks of this. The master plan is not going to include the farmland up above. That would be covered under something separate, but essentially we would hopefully be bringing to town meeting next year some type of plan and some type of phased approach for initially dealing with the stormwater management and then going through some other site amenities that we may want, including better access for boating and fishing and restrooms, etc. So that's sort of the main overview. It's a work in progress. There'll be a lot more information that we're going to be putting out, but I wanted to pass the microphone over to Ryan Orr, who's our facilities director, who is going to talk a little bit about sort of our infrastructure, what we've been doing so far, and what we have planned for the next month. Thank you.
All right, so many of you have probably noticed that there's been some tree work, some clearing that we've been doing there. All of the work that's been done so far it's dead wood, down limbs. We're trying not to take too many healthy trees. We're trying to leave as many trees as we can. But we did take a lot of the dead wood. We cleared it out pretty good. There's still plenty of cleaning, aftermath cleaning that we need to do. And that's something that we'll do over the next month as much as we can. Excuse me? Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, I'll speak into the mic. So for those of you who didn't hear me, recently we've done some tree work that we've taken as many of the dead woods and down limbs that we could. There was a couple trees that were living, but maybe in bad locations. Tried to open up the beach area a little bit with some of the stuff that we thought might be a little bit dangerous to have picnic tables underneath. There is plenty of cleaning that we still need to do, so if you've been there, it might look a little messy, but we're in the process and we will be cleaning it up, hopefully by season beginning. That is probably most of the trees of what we plan to take down, at least until we get a master plan back from Weston and Sampson. And then we'll determine at that point whether there'll be anything else that's taken. But like we said, we're trying not to take too many because it's we don't want to lose the infrastructure of the property. And but anyways, so we will continue with the cleanup of twigs, down limbs, the raking that needs to be done, and there's plenty of trash cleanup that we're going to be there to do. There's a dock that's kind of taken apart at this point. We've removed the plywood off of the dock. We're trying to decide right now whether we split it and divide the dock into 2 pieces to put it out there. How we're going to configure it in the water, we're not exactly sure of as of right now. But that is in the works as well. So if you go down and you see the dock is stripped apart, we do have a plan that we're working on. We just don't have a whole lot of time to get it done, so we just figured we'd strip it off, and when we're ready to go, we'll put it back together and get it out there. We have plans to put a shed on the property. Just as you get down to the beach area, if you're on the state boat launch side, the shed is going to be, and I guess if anybody's been there, there's a porta potty there. Just behind that, towards the water, we're going to put a shed. It's a nice looking shed. It's cedar shakes, kind of looks like it came off of Nantucket. So we figured it fit right in pretty good there. Just to the left of that, just below, so if you're standing and looking up the hill, and you see the 2 existing bathrooms that are there, just to the left of those, just down at the bottom of the hillside, that's where the new bathroom trailer is going to be located. All of these locations have been approved by NRC, and I should have mentioned that before, that also the trees that we got taken down, anything that was close to the water, we also had that approval taken care of as well. So bathroom and shed will kind of be right at your entrance when you're coming in, where there will be ADA ramp that kind of goes right in between, that will take you right to the water, so it's easy access to get to the shed for any kind of first aid help or anything like that, and then also to get to the bathrooms. The shed is going to be 16 foot by 12 foot. The bathroom trailer will be 22 by 8. And really the only other thing I have on here is in the fall, we're going to leave the existing bathroom structures. We don't really have time to take them down this year and figure out how we're going to do that. So in the fall, we plan to take those down and recycle the materials that we take from there. Also, I noticed the other day that the well needs to be put back together. Obviously is dismantled at the end of every summer winterization. So I went to get water samples. We don't have water. We have to put the well back together, put the pump back together. So we'll plan to do that next week. So you'll probably see us down there putting the well back together. Once that's together, I'll get some samples, and we're just trying to make sure that, I'll bring the samples to an analytical lab for standard comprehensive drinking water tests. And that was approved by the town, the health department, that's what we have done to use the well water. So, but other than that, that's pretty much all I have. If anybody has any questions, I don't know, do we want to do questions now, or do we want to do an open? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Kane from Recreation.
Hello, Ryan Kane, the Recreation Director. Thank you for coming out this evening. I'm going to go over a couple of quick recaps from the last meeting. From the last meeting, we did try to summarize the public questions and answers and did post them on the Recreation webpage, so I don't know if you've seen that. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll try to summarize some of those. Additionally, just because Ann's in the audience, I'm going to tell her it's not a shed, it's a guardhouse. We're going to amp it up a little bit better, make it sound better. And just from the public hearing, we heard a lot of what you were saying and did make some adjustments and some changes along the way. One of which is obvious there now is the porta potty. That came from requests from this audience saying that there's common problems going on 365 days a year there. We intend to have the porta potty there 365. It won't be down at the bottom during the winter. They'll bring it back up by the parking lot, but so that it could still be serviced. But fishermen now don't have an excuse. I can't tell you that they're not going to do what they continue doing, but they now don't have an excuse, and it certainly makes policing a little bit easier matter when there's something right there obvious in front of them. So hopefully that helps on the cleanliness of the facility and makes it just a better environment and better home for everybody there. So that was certainly one of the first steps and was easy to do for us once we got permission to start being on the property. A couple of things that came out of changes from the last meeting, just on the season dates. We will operate still June 17th to August 25th, but the hours will be 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And that will start immediately on June 17th, certainly with school getting out earlier. That made it a little bit easier to access that. And we don't know if long-term that will be the season. We don't know if we'll be opening earlier or going later. We'll be making adjustments as we go along with that. The cost for members to bring a guest is $10 per guest. The cost for non-members to enter the facility is $20 per person. So that is a change that occurred. And additionally, we have capped the number of non-members to visit the facility in a day to 50 individuals. So if you are not a pass holder and you want to go to the facility for the day, first off, you can't check in until an hour after the opening time, which would be 11 o'clock, and we're maximizing that at 50 individuals. So that was one of the follow-up changes from there. Additionally, we passed out a copy of the draft of the rules right now. We kind of broke it down into 4 different categories. The categories are admission into the facility, pass holder regulations, daily admission regulations, beach rules, and park rules, because it will be a park outside of the beach operating hours, so some of those rules will carry over throughout the year. So that's our first draft of that. That's gone through and worked through our administrative team. We're going to funnel it through the staff and work through there and kind of make sure it's things that they can manage and handle and operate for the rules. And as anything we're doing on this, it's a learning process for us. So some of those rules may change on the fly. As we notice that we need to add a rule for some crazy reason, then we'll have to add the rule. Or if we need to make some adjustment for the safety of the facility, for the well-being of the patrons at the facility, we'd make those adjustments on the fly for that. So you have that in hand with you there. Just FYI, we're filling in on staff. That was one of the questions that came up last time. We're fortunate that we have Ann returning as the waterfront director. She joined us here today to kind of hear what's happening, but I know that was a concern of many people, and it was a concern of ours. To operate this facility is a large workload, and the number one priority is safety. And having somebody that knows that facility and knows and understands the safety precautions is key point for us. And that makes it a lot easier for us to be able to manage the facility. We're in the process of hiring the team right now. We'd be doing staff training June 14th through the 16th, leading up to the opening on Monday the 17th. And then just an update on the membership. To date, we have sold approximately 620 household passes. That's approximately around 100 of those are from returning White Pond members from 2018. The rest are primarily from new households to purchase passes to the facility. And that's our goal was to cap that at 700 household passes. And that would be the passes sold for the season. So I think do you have anything else? Delia, do you want to jump in on anything before we move forward? Okay. So I think we're going to open up to questions now. And for questions, we're going to ask that you come to the main microphone in the middle, state your name and your address, and give us your question. We're going to do our best to answer questions. We may not answer them all today because we may not have all the answers today. And whatever we do, we're going to summarize again and give a response back on the webpage. Okay?
Good evening, and thank you for holding this. My name is David Gear, I reside at 20 Dartmouth Street. I just have one question. Under beach rules, underlined in capital letters, no swimming is permitted, etc. I was wondering what the initial plans were for enforcing that regulation, both during the interval between now and June 17th when it officially opens and during the off hours. you know, enforcing it is a big challenge, and I was just wondering what the initial plan would be so that, you know, those in the neighborhood are familiar. If they see an infraction, they know who to report it to, or how you envision that unfolding and evolving. Thank you.
So it will be signed that there is no lifeguard on duty and no swimming at that point. It would kind of be more of a police matter with that if an individual is swimming beyond that point. So that would probably be the best matter for calling. We do hope to, on the signage, have things to direct for where to call for complaints, if it's beach related or if it is a public safety related or if it's after hours. So those phone numbers should be posted on the signage that's at the facility as well. So hopefully, if you're there and you see something happening after hours, you'll know where to report it to. Or if it's something that you say can wait till tomorrow, that I'm shooting an email to how to go through that process as well.
Alan Beveridge, 28 Shore Drive, and just to remind you, I'm your direct abutter to the south. A couple of things. One, I just want to put in a good word for dead wood. You said you were cutting down dead wood. We try not to cut anything down on our property, even when it's dead. And for years, we had an oak that broke off at about 20 feet up, and it rotted, and there were wood ducks nesting in there for about 6 years, and it was wonderful to see the ducklings fall out and run to the water. So dead wood has its place. I realize that you have different reasons, liability reasons for doing that, but I just wanted to put in a good word for dead wood. With regard to the survey, I just want to remind everyone that a survey of the beach is not possible. You can survey, I don't know who drew the green lines on that, but those are roughly based on the 1931 meander. And beyond the 1931 meander, you have to go to land court to determine the property lines, which is incredibly expensive, and it would affect everyone around the pond. Everyone would have to hire lawyers. So I just want you to be aware that and I can give you the language. Do you know right now who the surveyor might be? Okay, are they aware of the Great Ponds laws? Okay, because they indicate that beyond the property bounds that you have there. This is the town's GIS. Right. No, I understand that, but it's roughly correct based on the property. We had Snelling and Hamill, and they're the ones who know White Pond better than anyone else, and I was going to suggest them, but I guess that's not possible at this point. So as long as you know that a survey of the beach is not possible, you can survey roughly to where you have the green line on that, but not beyond that. Secondly, I have, being the direct abutter, we talked about this before, about putting a sign up between your property and our property on the beach. And this is just a proposal for the sign indicating that the property beyond that point, there are 2 copies there. It basically just says, according to Massachusetts Great Pond laws, the shoreline beyond this point to low water is private property. Please respect private property. Thank you, the town of Concord. And because the water line changes dramatically, it's way up now, but sometimes it's way down. If possible, I'd like 2 signs, sort of, because somebody could miss one if the water is way down and they go on the upland side of it. So if that's possible, I'd like that to happen. Second of all, this is just an inquiry. You talked about the well at the beach. One of you talked about the well at the beach. My impression, I mean, it may be totally wrong, but I remember many years ago, we've lived there since 1992, the association used to replenish the sand at the beach. I don't know what the Natural Resources Commission says about that kind of thing now, but they used to truck in huge amounts of sand on big dump trucks. And at one point, I was told by them that there was not a well, that they were drawing water out of the pond, and there's a pipe under the beach, and the trucks broke the pipe, so they were without water for a short period of time. Do you know anything about that? I'm sorry? The association. Oh, this is a long time ago I'm talking about. Right. Well, my impression is there's not really a well. There's a pipe. Is it? Okay, maybe that was since then.
There was a pipe pulling water from the pond. That isn't what is feeding.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Terrific. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Jackson, 44 Old Marlborough Road. Just a quick question on kind of the overcrowding and the idea of non-member guest passes on a day, because I think once social media gets a hold that you can go to White's Pond for $20, which is as cheap as parking at Walden Pond, it's just going to get flooded. And I just wonder what the thought process is. You guys have never run this piece of property before. You don't even have a master plan, but we're going to be bringing in a ton of more people into the process on a regular basis. So I was just wondering why that decision was made.
The decision after the last meeting here was to cap that number at 50 per day. So the maximum of non-members, pass holders to come in was 50. Outside of that, it is still a public swimming facility. So it is a Town of Concord public swimming facility. So it has to be available to the Town of Concord residents.
So can you make it residents only?
No, you can't, because you're accepting state funding for that. And so we do have a 15, is it 15%? 10% cap on the passes sold for the facility, for the member passes that are being sold, that, buy for the season. And it would be hard to maintain, but we can maintain the number of daily admissions to be no more than 10% non-resident.
So the cap is 10% non-resident, is that?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Marty Plotkin, 54 Francis Street. Just first of all, a point of clarification on the rules about guests. Are guests included in the cap of 50 non-members?
No.
And is there a limit on the number of guests that people can bring in?
That you're bringing into the facility? No, not right now.
Okay.
Nope.
But they are counted in the 400
Correct.
maximum on-site at any time?
Correct.
Okay. Interesting management challenge. My main point is that I continue to object strongly to the rule that no swimming is permitted beyond the ropes. That is something that has been a feature of swimming at White Pond for time immemorial. It has not, to the best of my knowledge, ever caused any problems to the people at the beach. And it is precious to me, and I know to many other members, many other residents in the town. And I would strongly encourage you to reconsider that policy. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all.
Hi. We heard that from people. We checked with our insurance company. We checked with Better Beaches. And then I had a long conversation with the Department of Conservation and Recreation regarding what Walden Pond does, which, by the way, was an act of the state legislature to change for open water swimming, and also came with a pretty hefty price tag. So we're not saying no, never, but we can't afford to do what needs to be done to legally allow that. Regarding the fact that no one, last year we had a drowning from someone, and they died, and it's something that we don't want to have happen again. And they didn't enter from the beach area, certainly, but there's a number of different things that can happen with open water swimming. And part of what we have to do is really try to gauge, things that people want to do and would like to do with the health and safety of the general public, with our first responders, and mostly with the people that we're going to be having there working. And we certainly, we spoke at great length last time about the challenges that puts on young folks who are usually of the age that would want to have a summer job lifeguarding, and to impress upon them that we have someone who, is in distress outside of the lines. And I know that quite a few people said, well, we'll take that liability on ourselves, but that's a very difficult position to put a young person in, or to put any person in. It would be a difficult. It's been going on for generations under a private club. Yes. Yep. We are a public facility, and so there's different rules, and I understand that is distressing to folks, and so I apologize for that. But we've done our due diligence to make sure that what we're telling you regarding the rules and regulations for when we're open and when we're there is accurate and in line with other communities who have facilities. And it isn't a no. If that becomes something that is a major initiative for the community, we're happy to explore some of the steps that Walden took to make sure that it's done properly and done with safety in mind. That's what I can say about that for now.
Hi, I called, and I realize this is mostly about the beach, but I'll tell you who I am in a second. And thank you. And they said it was also about the general pond thing. I live right by the Sachem, I don't know, everybody pronounces it differently.
Yep.
Sachem
Yep.
Cove.
Yeah.
And I was there, had recently moved in when the deceased individual came up my path. He was aided by the rescue, but so I was aware of the drowning. We've also had a fire, and there's tremendous concerns about that path. The path was closed. The people took the sign and tossed it. When I redirect the people or ask them, they're rude and belligerent. I have a list of things I'd like to just let you know about. Thank you. My name is Holly Rust, and I'm at 150 North Road in Sudbury. I'll come up and give you the information afterwards if you like. I'm happy to do that. I was reading the trail guide, and it said dogs must be on a leash at all times. When they get to the edge of your property, coming in from meeting from North Road, everybody takes their dogs off the leash. In fact, yesterday, there were 3 in my backyard. I opened the door to speak to whoever I could find the individual, and all 3 came in my house. My cats are now needing psychiatric help. It says no bikes. We get bikes all the time there. They go off the trails. They do not observe your signs at all. Yesterday, there were 75 people just having a picnic. One had a hibachi going. They were sitting over on the brand new steps that have been renovated. They were jumping down over the hill by the ropes. It's just amazing.
I'm sorry, yes, I think I'm going to have Dahlia come up because that is actually NRC's.
Okay.
I'm still writing it down.
No, that's fine. I can speed up. Hi, Don.
Hi. Do you want me to respond to some of that?
Pardon me?
Do you want me to respond to some of that now?
That would be fine.
Okay.
Sure.
So we have rangers. The Division of Natural Resources has 2 rangers. Both are starting tomorrow. And one of their responsibilities is patrolling White Pond and making sure that dogs are on leash, that there are no bikes, no hibachis. People are not supposed to be on the steps. We have a contractor, as you probably know, out there right now doing that restoration work at Sachem's Cove. We are very concerned about keeping people out of those restoration areas in order to allow them time to establish. So one of the roles of the rangers will be to make sure that that's
And they have been a
adhered to.
help, and I speak with them constantly and talk to them.
Great.
And I have called the police and done different things.
Great.
So I'm trying to be as vigilant as I can without getting,
Right.
murdered at
And
night.
if there are any concerns on your part, don't hesitate to call the police
Okay.
department.
I just have a few other things to say. So we're getting loud screaming. The trail being closed didn't help at all. We're getting toiletry. I have a great command of the human body because everyone undresses behind my condo and gets out of their wet suit into dry clothing. That's an experience. A lot of littering. I'm finding alcohol bottles and hypodermic needles in and at the beach. I have collected no less than 15, and one concerns me. Okay.
too.
Coolers go down at night. Now, we're talking 12 hours a day.
Right.
On the weekends.
Those are definitely calls for the police department, the nighttime parties. I mean, they sort of wax and wane.
Yeah. I don't expect to stop it. I want people to enjoy it, but I want them to respect the place. The
Right.
trash, I pick up trash bags worth of stuff all the time.
Thank you.
Just last year, Wicker Furniture went down to the beach, and I didn't see it come back up. I mean, we're talking large love seats and things. Very strange. So the people are grilling down there. They're parking all in our streets. They will get out of their cars, slam their doors, drop their stuff off, leave their car right in the road, and just walk down the path and not come up for hours. It's very disturbing. And then when the gravel, I call it the gravel pit, sorry, whatever that thing's going in over in our property, there's going to be 400 to 500 more people being able to access White Pond. And I'm really concerned. I think it's going to be a mess.
I think that's a separate discussion from the beach, but
Yep.
that will be something that I think we'll
And you're
have a
doing
lot
all
of
this
discussion around
restoration,
it.
and it's beautiful. I just hate to see it destroyed. So, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Sally Seaver, 174 Hawthorne Lane, and I've been a member of White Pond for years. And I actually dropped my BD membership because it closes too often for thunderstorms and stuff like that. One of the neat things the beach did last year was sometimes to send out emails to people when the beach closed for, especially when the algae got bad or something like that. That was really nice. And the other thing I think, which would be hard for me, is when I go swimming, it's usually late in the day. And very often I have a friend come out from Cambridge, Acton, somewhere like that to come with me. No problem paying for it. But how are we going to know when we get there whether we're going to be allowed on? Because I tend not to use the beach all day. I tend to go down, swim for my 45 minutes, and go home. And a lot of us do that. So those are a couple of things to think about, because if I can see on the really warm days hitting that barrier early, but then people go home, and how do you rotate for other guests to come in?
We will establish a form of communication once we get everything set up down there and figure
Yes.
out what is the best forum for us to get the
Right.
information out that the beach has reached capacity. The vision would be if the beach reaches capacity, to do something almost similar to what Walden says, that says, we're at capacity, we're not going to sit there with a ticker and wait for one person to leave and one to come
Yeah.
out. We're going to say, come back at this time.
3 o'clock,
Yeah,
4
whatever
o'clock.
time we think will settle the crowd down a little bit, and you'll lose some of the people out of there, at which point we would then do that. So we would communicate that out in one form or another. We just want to make sure that when we get down there, that is I don't want to tell you that we're going to do it in this format, and they get down there and they realize the communications they have down there isn't that
It
effective
doesn't
to
work.
do that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
No, I don't. And yeah, I'm one of these people that do like to swim straight across the pond. And I don't care if I drown. Yeah, but
Hi, Alan Beveridge, 28 Shore Drive. Again, a couple of things came up from what people said. One, about swimming outside the lines. Obviously, you don't control what private property owners abutting the pond can do because they're outside the lines anyway. But my question concerns the state access road. Do you control that? Because I remember the previous police chief, not the current one, used to tell people that if you didn't belong to the association, the only way you could legally, there are two ways you could legally swim in the pond. One was to go off the end of the state access road, and the other was to parachute in. And the implication is that when you go off the end of the state access road, it's not in the town's control, and you're right there, you're outside the lines. So if that's the case, and I don't know whether it is now, but it used to be, somebody could simply walk over from the beach to the state access road and swim across or swim back.
So the state access road is open, as you know, because it's a great pond, and the 1641-ish colonial ordinances require that great ponds be open to fishing, fouling, and navigation.
1649.
1649, thank you. silent on swimming, so the state does not take a position. In fact, they discourage swimming from public boat launches because it may interfere with the fishing and the boating access. So the
Well,
town is...
discourage, it doesn't mean it's illegal.
They have a very limited police. They
sorry?
have a very limited police force. The town is right now in discussions with the state of Massachusetts about entering into a land management agreement, and that would allow the town to have enforcement authorities over that state boat launch.
Okay. The other one is with regard, I didn't know this was going to come up tonight, with regard to the conservation land around Satcham's Cove. I've been riding my bicycle through there for years and years to get to the railroad tracks and ride on the tracks. And I had checked both online and I don't know whether with you or the previous Natural Resources Commissioner who said it was okay to do that. Is that not true anymore?
To ride bicycles?
Yeah.
No.
Not on the beach, I'm not talking about.
None of the trails
on the
around White
trails?
Pond are
'Cause it
open
used
to bicycles.
It used to say you could online.
We just closed that 2 or 3 years ago because of severe erosion around the pond and the pollutants that
Is it
contributes.
permissible to walk them through there to the trail?
That is permissible. Walking bikes through the trail is permissible. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Andrea Ciani, 57 Anson Road, and was the previous vice president of the board for the last 30-some years of White Pond. And I just wanted to clarify that actually there is no well. The water never came from a well at the pond. It is town water, seasonal, that comes down from the road. It was years ago drawn from the pond, so this gentleman was correct. It was drawn from the pond originally, and then it was non-potable, if people remember way back. It always said in the bathrooms, non-potable water. We then, on the risks of that, then Bob Hale did the work on that and brought in the water from the town. So there may be an old well, but that big circle right near the bathhouses, that's the septic, not a well. I believe that's the septic. Well, I'll show you some pictures. I have some pictures I was going to bring to. Okay. Well, that could have been the old pump when it did draw from the pond. It could have been, but we have been doing seasonal town water for 10, 12. I don't actually remember when, but it is seasonal town water that comes down from the road. You know, Dick Hale, our champion, has been the one who would call and get that organized. I would remind him each year, and he would call someone. So I would contact Dick to find out who he called to turn it on and off. But I remember always reminding him with the cold.
It's, we'll figure out.
Yeah.
We've thank you for the info. Yeah.
Yeah, it's conflicting. We hired someone to take a look at it, so we've been able to do some testing with it. So I think there's some.
Okay, well, Bob Hale, just so you know, that we did the ditch witching all the way down from the main road where there's a up at Plainfield. So there is pipe coming down the hill. So just make sure that you're aware of that. I had just a couple other questions. One is, I wondered I know, Delia, you said that maybe there'll be a plan to deal with the county road to be able to manage it as Concord, which is something that we were working on with Fish and Wildlife and had hoped Concord would do that years ago, because I think it really is a hard management issue. And certainly has been something we struggled with, and can certainly attest to that over many years. And I wondered what you are doing with, we have the Appalachian Mountain Club kayakers use that road a lot, and that access, and they park at Willard and drive, and I just didn't know if you guys were aware of that and how you plan to manage
Just
that.
received an email request from them yesterday or 2 days ago. So they've just reached out to start communication with us on that.
Okay, because when we talked with the Fish and Wildlife, they said actually they could use it as small boat top, but not as an organizational thing, and that's what they were directed. And so instead, in their brochures, which, you know, we tried to work very friendly with them, but they would always put at a pond nearby. They would never advertise where, and then when you joined the group, you then found out where it was. So they kind of got around organizing it there, and then the hard thing we would have is sometimes they would have a Tuesday and Thursday group, and Wednesday would become a free-for-all, and we would have 30 kayaks, and that was sometimes became a problem. So I'm just sharing that as, but we tried to, I mean, it was friendly to have them there, and I think it's wonderful that you will have some bathhouse use for others that are there, because that protects the pond. Just making sure that in all your site planning, remember that for many years, in the recent past, the water came all the way up to the wall. So just in any of your site planning to keep that in mind, and so people need quite a bit of area up by the wall. If you imagine now raising it to 700 families, that's significantly more than we've done for 30 years. So I would just be mindful of, you know, how many people, if the water level does continue to rise, as you're doing site planning and things like that, to just not, you know, we can't predict where the water level will be. So I think that's really important. And I do have some concerns about how high and how you're going to manage the overflow and the overflow from Walden Pond. And I would encourage Delia just some real work with Walden Pond. We've done that each year, trying to remind them that their people should not say, oh, you know, we're full. Yes, and we do too. So we need to keep that up, just because otherwise we'll have, the neighborhood will have the circling of a lot of people. So I wish you the best, and as always, we've offered our support, and anytime you have questions for any of us board, we would love to be able to. We certainly have many, many years of experience, so, you know, reach out to us. Okay.
Sure, if you can share your contact info with me before you leave today. And
Absolutely.
also, just an update that I forgot to bring up earlier is that we are in process of, we got approved and are posting for a recreation park ranger to be on the White Pond beach side as well. So we are in process of trying to incorporate that within and get that position filled for this summer.
And will that be for off hours also?
It's, right now, we don't have anybody, so
Right.
we posted it for 7 days a week. I can't even remember the exact hours, so it wouldn't be a long run of off hours. You know, you'd be looking at daylight.
Because we would, like, if we had a warm Memorial Day and weren't open, there would be maybe 80 people at the beach.
Yep.
Even though it's posted no swimming.
Yep.
And so just be prepared. So then we started over the years hiring police detail and things, because we just felt the liability became too great with that. So it's just to know.
Okay.
So wish you the best.
Thank you.
Hi, Jim Jackson, 44 Old Marlborough Road again. Just a quick follow-up on the crowding issue. And you had mentioned that we accepted state funds to run this, and that's why we have to have it open to non-town residents. Did I hear that correctly?
So part of it is that the CPC, the Community Preservation Commission or Committee, that program is has a state match. So there's those state funds, but we also would like to reserve our ability to apply for state and federal grants. And one that actually just came out is the Parkland, PARC grant that Ryan and I were just exchanging emails about today. And so if we limit Great Pond to only residents, which actually I don't even think we are allowed to do that, to be honest with you. It would take us out of the running for those. And I think what needs to be done, particularly with the stormwater management, is well over $1.5 million. So I think we need to really make sure that we have some other avenues besides tax dollars, and we want to make sure that we're limiting the number of passes that we give out, which is another source of revenue. So we had to balance that. So.
And just one more thing on the swimming outside the lines. Another activity that's very popular is floating on inner tubes. And a lot of pond members would put their inner tubes on the side and then go off on the side of the rope. I hope that's under consideration as well.
To continue, you mean?
To continue, yeah.
I have questions for two different people. Delia, one is for you. Carlene Hempel, 50 Highland Street. Delia, you mentioned that you are in, I don't know what language you used, but you're in negotiation with the state so that you then take control of that Great Pond access. Did I get that right?
So it's a land management agreement. The state would retain ownership, the town would have the ability to enforce and to maintain the road, which would...
My question is, if you don't pursue that land management agreement, then that access remains in the possession of the state, and then people could still use that to go across the pond, theoretically, is that correct?
So they're not supposed to be doing that now. The state just has so few people to take on enforcement that if they do that now, the town doesn't have the ability to stop that. We are very interested in entering into that land management agreement, so it's not something that's going to fall off the radar.
Another issue to that is that one of the things that we're really focused on is the stormwater management, and a stormwater management will only be good if we also incorporate the access road, because right now it's akin to a water slide directly into the pond. So if we don't have a land management agreement, then we have to stop any improvements that we make right at that drive, and that essentially negates all of the good that we would be doing on the other side, so.
Okay. My goal in asking these questions is to see if there is some way around. I mean, as many people have said it before and I know you understand, but it is critical to many of us to be able to actually swim in open water. And I wonder if we could talk about how to make that happen versus talking only about that it's not going to happen. And so my question to you or to Ryan is, if Walden does it, could you put together, there are so many people interested in this issue, could you put together a spec sheet for us, for all of us to understand what it would take to get the same status that Walden has, so that we could then understand what you're talking about? You said it comes at a hefty cost. Perhaps this is an issue for town meeting. Maybe the people of Concord would agree that this is something important enough to them to allow this sort of access, because I'm hearing it here, it was at the other meeting, and many people I talked to, myself included, feel very strongly about this wonderful amenity that we had to swim into the pond. And with all due respect, I don't know if it's fair to say a person died there. I mean, you could say that about people riding bikes and people riding cars. People die in Walden too. It's open, it's water. People could die in 2 inches of it. So I think that is, I don't think that's the argument to throw at those of us who want to continue to swim across the pond. I think what we would love is to know how that could happen and how you could make that happen for us.
So we talked, okay, I got it. We understand. I talked about the ability, we are extending the swimming area and the lines. So as far as open water swimming, swimming back and forth between the lines is going to be twice as long as it was in any other year. That's a commitment that we're making. That may not be something that people want to do, and that's fine. Regarding coming up with, what it's going to cost, we don't actually own it yet. Like I said at the beginning, we have an access agreement and a license agreement. And so I think that there needs to be an understanding that we have to allow enough time for us to be able to run the operation and to do all of the things that the majority of the people who are going to be there, including swimming and using the bathroom facilities and making sure that it's ADA accessible before we're able to cost out. We are doing a master plan that can happily be included in that, and it will. But I think, the expectation for us to be able to say it's going to cost X amount of dollars and let's go to town meeting, and we just don't have all that information yet. So I would ask that, people understand that we're not saying, and it's exactly what I said before, we're not saying no forever. This is the answer that we got for this season, you know, for this year. And we understand your position, and I'm not telling you I'm supportive of it or not. We're just trying to do what we need to do, and my job is to make sure that we're complying with our beach permit, and we're also complying with our insurance. And so we're trying to do that in the best way possible. If there's a way that we can have that included in the master plan, and we come to the community and say we could do, you know, stormwater management, we can do across the water swimming, we could do a new bathroom facility, what's the thing that you want to see as the number one, and that's the number one, then that's phase one. You know, it's not for Ryan and I and Delia to decide. This is your pond. So if that's the highest priority, we would be committed to seeing that through and getting the information for the community to decide. We don't have access to that information
That's
yet.
great. It sounds like you're pledging to make it at least one on the list of priorities,
Absolutely.
which is, I
Yep.
think, what we would like to see.
Yep.
We would like to have the numbers
Sure.
before us. Great.
You know,
thank
and I equate this, by the way, to, you know, what we're doing over at Warner's Pond, where, you know, people have said for a number of months now, you know, we'd really like to swim, and we'd really like to swim there. Wouldn't that be great? And so we're collecting, you know, a number to say, if you want to swim, it's going to cost X amount of dollars, you know, to be able to dredge there and make it swimmable and make it nice. And then it's up to the community to say, yeah, it's worth it. Or, you know what, maybe let's hold off and we'll back burner that. So it's a similar situation with all things that we're going to do at the property.
Hi, I just have a few last minute things. We were approached, Frost Farm Condominiums, about putting a camera at the trailhead on North Road, and no one ever followed through on it. And we got the approval. Frank Kyoto wants it to happen, and we just don't know. Now, that kind of runs into my other question. Are you working with Sudbury Conservation? Because half of the trail and half of our problems are coming from the people that are coming in from Sudbury.
I don't know the first thing about a camera, so I'm not sure who has asked for it or who you're talking to or who Frank's
didn't know.
talking to about that.
He did not know.
But we can follow up offline on that. We're a little reluctant to put cameras up on trailheads at this time, but I can certainly talk with you about
It
that.
was going to go up on our light pole, so it would have been our expense.
And your property. And your property, right.
So if
And
you find out
we're-
anything, if you'd let Frank know, that would be great.
Sure. As far as the Sudbury Conservation Commission, we are in contact with them about the trails, because I know the Salamander Trail comes down, and that hooks into the Concord Trail system.
So they're aware of the problems that are happening that are bleeding into White's Pond, correct?
They know that we have concerns about some of the trail use, but it's more of Concord's problem because the problems are happening in Concord.
Okay. And how often will the rangers be in the Sachem Cove area?
So there are 2 rangers. They're starting tomorrow, as I said, so they're going to be trained over the next couple of days. They will work a staggered 7-day work week, so there will be one of them on Saturday and one on Sunday. We have over a dozen popular conservation lands that are also areas that they're going to be spending time at, and so they will be at White Pond at least once a day.
They're also split with Walden, is that correct?
No.
Oh, they're not?
Walden is
great.
DCR,
Great.
State Department of Conservation and Recreation.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're
The other question I had is kind of controversial, but it's not really a question, but if you can't man these areas, perhaps a drone to go overhead, it'd be loud, I know, it'll be a little disturbing,
Yeah.
but it might help curb some of the problems.
That would be a long conversation with my commission.
I'm sure. Thank you and good luck with everything.
Alan Beveridge, 28 Shore Drive, yet again. Could we have the last slide that was up there, up again? I wanted to make a point, but before that, how, with regard to people swimming across the pond, how is that going to be enforced? I mean, you're not going to equip 15-year-old lifeguards with handcuffs or anything like that, are you?
So I think what Ryan was saying before, so there's a separation between the beach, which is the Recreation Department, and Sachem's Cove, which is conservation land, and Select Board land, which is managed by the NRC. So Ryan was saying earlier that would be a ranger. They're going to hire a park ranger as well as
that's
Farris
Sachem's
Police
Cove.
Department. No, the beach.
Oh, there's going to be a ranger on the beach?
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That ranger will be equipped, as will the lifeguards, equipped with police radios.
Okay.
it's a police matter. They'll call the police.
So that's the same as the Sachem Coves Rangers?
Correct. Whether, whether what happens from there, I can't tell you, but that would be the protocol. Let the public safety officials know and move on.
Okay, second, with regard to stormwater management, this slide is particularly illustrative of the problem. You mentioned the water coming down the state access road, but that is minor compared to the water coming down from the parking lot by the stairs. And, well, go back to the previous one. The previous one's better. The close-up. You can see, whenever there's a gully washer, and I've gone out in some really big rainstorms, and there is a torrent coming down beside the association steps. And you can see that there's a delta forming there, which is much bigger than the sand delta forming from the state access road.
I'm going to stop you right there because you're talking to someone that this is not my bailiwick, admittedly, and we have hired a horticulturist, and we've also hired a team through Weston and Sampson of stormwater management analysts who are going to look at rainfall and the evolution and all of the elevation over the past 15 years of here. And they're also going to do testing pits for the types of soils that we have. And so what you may want to say, you might want to reserve for 6 to 7 months till they come in and say what we're going to do.
Fine. One more point. I think really this is more of an NRC issue than a town management issue, really, because, as I said, the association used to truck in, we moved in there in 1992, and at least twice since we moved in there, they trucked in huge amounts of sand and would dump them on the beach to replenish the beach. And you can see that the sand is washing off the beach because of the stormwater coming off it.
The NRC
and it always puzzled me that, in effect, they were filling the pond.
So the NRC won't have an issue as long as it goes through a permit process and the sand that is brought in is clean sand. It has allowed it at Nurse Hill Pond, at Walden Pond. It just goes through a permitting process.
Well, but is there some way, you can see it really is filling the pond up. And you can see the sand that's gone into the pond right there. Is there any way, this may be too complicated, but to dredge that sand out? Because it's just going to get worse and worse over the years.
Those are possibilities to be looked at. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Carmen Jacquier, 38 Shore Drive. I had a question about the bathrooms. You talk about the septic system that wasn't good anymore. I was at the Giroux meeting, and they showed these lovely little huts that were composting toilets. Is that going to be any...
This is my area. I got to talk about this at town meeting, too. I love a good composting toilet story. So the composting toilets are great when they are going to be closed and winterized. And because what we listened to at the last meeting, it seemed like White Pond was used very frequently year-round, we need to come up with some type of plan for us to be able to have something down there that we can use, all season long. In addition to that, the composting toilets are, Giroux is really unique and actually a perfect place for this because it can be built into the hill, but the slope and the grade is such that you won't really notice that it's being basically built into a cubbyhole. I don't know if anyone's actually watched The Lord of the Rings, but Bilbo Baggins' house with the little door that's kind of built in, that's exactly what this looks like, essentially. So you walk in and you think it's this big open thing, but really half of it is in there. The pitch of where it is at White Pond is so steep that really wouldn't work out. And so we would basically have to build some type of cement structure around it that would not only be unsightly, I think we're going to end up having big puddles that are there. Part of it is that it needs to remain dry so that the composting actually happens. And so for all of those reasons, and as I said at town meeting, I can happily offline go into how they get cleaned out and stuff, but it would not work really well there. And so we want to make sure that we have something that's going to be functional all year long.
So you're going to redo a septic system for that?
Well, right now we have the portable. It's almost like a tight tank that's going to be pumped out. So envision sort of this composting minus the compost type of thing.
Okay.
So it's a hybrid between a permanent bathroom facility and porta potties, but nicer.
So that's different than what you're going to have for this summer with the super trailer.
No, that's what we're describing,
that
is the
is it.
super trailer.
So
Yeah.
that will always be it.
Well, I mean, part of the master plan is to decide what it would cost to have something permanent down there. We suspect it's going to be pretty difficult because what we have to do is basically pump it up the hill into a chamber and then pump it back up the other hill into a leach field to comply with sort of the standards for Board of Health that we have right now. And also, we have to comply with public bathing, whereas when White Pond had it, it wasn't necessarily open to everybody and their brother kind of thing. And so we need to make sure that we're able to pump enough gallons up the hill, and that can be pretty costly. So I suspect, although we'll bring it forward, that if we said to the community, we could have this permanent bathroom facility, but it costs $1 million, or we could do what we have now with some type of decking system around it and have it be semi-permanent. My feeling is the community would probably opt for that, but I could be completely off base.
Okay.
So we'll bring it forward.
Okay, thank you. There was one other question. You said, so the swimming between the lines will be twice as long as before, so are you going to have the float way out there or the float to the side, or?
Well, Ryan says it's not going to be twice as long, but I say it's going to be twice as long. So
We're evaluating it. I mean, what we were looking at is if the open swim wasn't available, how can we potentially come up with some type of area, whether we split the dock and we went back and forth, but we haven't talked to staff and evaluated all the way through that. But if you tried to come up with some type of swim lanes that the people who love open swimming can still swim more like laps in the pond area, will that kind of be a happy medium for the time being? Is the one thing we're evaluating right now. But until we really get out there and know the facility and drop the lane lines in and really be able to mark it out, I won't be to say it's twice as long. So I don't know if I want that phrase out there. But
Just one last question.
Yeah.
In regard to the well, is that water for the bathrooms or just like for the hut with the lifeguards or something like that you're drawing from a well? For the bathrooms, because I don't see how you draw from a well in that location and you're not drawing from the source of White Pond, which is groundwater. You're both in the same area of the groundwater. But you're having a greater capacity at the beach. But I've seen, White Pond Associates over the years, they didn't have that many people kind of at a time consistently. And the town might be, because it's a great thing, have more people there. So you could be drawing more water from a well than they had in the old times.
And we're going to be evaluating, like we said, all these processes, because the facility we have, you could tank water in if you needed to, and fill the trailer up with water that's coming in a tank if you needed to. So if it's not accessible to come in through the well or the pipe or wherever it is, we will have to obviously have water in there for hand washing and for flushing the toilet. So there will be, that's what we're developing, is how to get that access and be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Carol Harris, 131 Ledge Rock Road. I'd like to talk to Anne about how the waterfront's actually going to be run and the philosophy of the lifeguards and the lessons and some of those sorts of things. I'm wondering if that's expected to be similar to in past years or if it's a different focus.
I will welcome Ann up here, but I will also tell you, I didn't tell her that she was going to be put up on the
Right.
microphone. What we have been working in early communication with Ann is that we're talking through and saying we still want to have the same spirit or vibe of White Pond. There are definitely going to be some changes that happen throughout the entire processes. I can't tell you that it's not changing at all. And that's part of why we wanted Ann to be back. Like, I hope she wanted to come back, but we were certainly trying to get Ann to come back. And that she carried that over for us, where I couldn't tell you the spirit of White Pond the way she can. And so that was a key piece to that. I certainly envision that the successes she's had in getting her staff to be able to communicate with the public are things that we wanted to see as a model to be successful moving forward. When people are saying, bring back Ann, that tells me that there's an element there that people have a level of respect received back and forth between the leader of the facility and the staff following in. So, it's Ann's beach, to operate. Okay. We administer a lot of things, but it's when she's there, she's got to be looking out for the public safety. She's got to be looking out for what the patrons' needs are, and she's making those calls on the spot.
Including for the lessons?
For operating the lessons, yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's going to be her staff doing the lessons. So,
okay.
I can't tell you that because Amanda isn't here either. She's involved with the aquatics team, so I don't want to say, yeah, nothing's going to change, and Amanda's going, oh well, we're going to do something different on this, but. I wouldn't envision, we organize the lessons the same way they were organized before in the past, into the different time periods, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, but into the different time periods, then you come in and she kind of identifies and says, all right, you 5 are together and you 7 are together by your swimming ability, and we're going to kind of go through working through that. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And my other question is about capacity. I was curious how many people used to belong to the pond or to the association, and how many people the parking lot actually holds. And I'm just trying to get a feel for if it's going to be closed really
There were approximately
often.
550 household passes given out before in the past. It's just over that. I can't remember the exact number. Number of parking spots, you remember?
Okay. So it was
around 60.
So it's not like wildly bigger. Okay. But we never know. Right.
So
90, did you say 91 or 95?
Approximately 100 of the
Former
yeah.
WPA members, so we have quite a few
New, right.
and
Yep.
have you changed usage, meaning it's people that are going to go every day versus once a week, or vice versa, we don't know.
We don't know. Okay. Thank you.
So to follow up from here, we will try to summarize the questions brought forward tonight and try to put answers together and then put it up on the Recreation White Pond webpage, same way we did after the first forum there. I don't know much else besides that we open June 17th. Hopefully sun will be in the air for us on that date, not like the month of May. You can communicate to us through the Recreation Department. I'm Ryan Kane. You can also communicate through the Town Manager's office if you have questions that you want to get forward to us or ask us something specific on anything. We look forward to a successful season. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be ever evolving. There will be things that we see that we'll have to make adjustments on the fly, but we're looking forward to it and hoping for some sun. Okay, thank you.
For your comments.
Thank you.